So there's a lot of talk now, and there has been a lot of talk in the last couple of weeks. Oh, this is now rotation into value. This is rotation out of duration into cyclical sectors in equities, for example. The problem, and much of that hinges on the sort of narrative that you financial conditions over the last 12 months have loosened so much and have become so much easier because of this shift in monetary policy really worldwide. The problem, however, is, just like you said, if that continues, obviously yields will continue to spike, and that means financial conditions will tighten. So if you know what I mean, right? Your initial argument why you were bullish is at some point you're hitting a cap, right? You'll inevitably will be hitting a cap.
Max, we got to interrupt. John, why don't you lead us with the real move that we see in sterling? That GDP forecast out of the Bank of England is just jaw-dropping.
Cable rolling over, so sterling a little bit softer here, down 0.2% at 128.27. Max Kettner of HSBC just talking about monetary policy easing. I believe we have Guy Johnson with us over in London, because Guy, a Bank of England decision that was set to be an absolute snooze just got a little bit more interesting with two policymakers. Did they just vote for a rate cut?
I think Michael Saunders was largely expected by the market. There's been a lot of chat about the fact that he has completely turned tail from being a hawk to being a dove, and as a result of which he has voted for a cut. The surprise really, I think, is Haskell, and I think that is where the market has been caught on the hop here. So we have two members of the MPC voting for a cut this time round. We've also seen the bank, John, significantly downgrade its GDP forecast, 1.2 versus 1.3 this year, 2021. 1.8 versus 2.3. There is talk of the fact that the global risks are a big part of this. Actually, what they're basing this downgrade on is what is happening outside the UK largely. Some of it is inside the UK, but a lot of it is outside the UK. And they are now saying that basically they're looking at a situation where they are anticipating that it's going to get more difficult from here, Tom.
Guy Johnson, what is the importance of Jonathan Haskell and Michael Saunders saying, let's get going, let's cut the rates now? Define that significance, particularly going to the December 12th election.
Well, you think about it, Tom, given the uncertainty that exists currently in the United Kingdom, to make this call pre the election and pre the Brexit story actually turning out to be a reality, I think is quite a big call. And as I say, I think this is largely based on what is happening externally to the UK. The UK is a small, open economy. You guys were just talking about what was happening with the trade story with Max. The UK is being affected by this, and that is why the data are starting to slow, they believe, and that is why the forecasts have been cut. So this is in relation to what is happening, not with Brexit and not with the election, but what's happening with the global macroeconomy, Tom.
Hey, Guy, always great to catch up with you to get your thoughts. For anyone just tuning in, the Bank of England leaving interest rates unchanged, but two policymakers out of the 9 actually voting for a rate cut. The vote 7-2. Max Kettner, your view on that? I think most people just assumed no change, vote 9-0 going into an election next month.
Yeah. Look, if I put it into an investment context, okay, what's the trade here? The problem is, for me, obviously, if I have a sort of 3 to 6 month view, and in our context it's really about gilts, it's about UK equities. The problem is I don't want to speculate only on politics. So I'm sort of being the maximum coward and shying away from taking any active stance there, really, because I might be horribly wrong, or this might be a career breaker.
What's interesting to me is that every central bank is saying that they're doing an action or considering because of what's happening globally.
There we go.
Well, so who are they blaming?
That basically tells you central bankers are now reacting to something that they actually don't have under control, right? So they're reacting to sort of global growth, to global phenomena. If we're talking about, let's say, old school stereotype textbook monetary policy, Phillips curve and all that gibberish, right? you basically then saying
we're calling it gibberish now.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. You can still believe in that, but meh, there we go. The thing for me is, look. The problem is you see a lot of central banks, including the Fed, responding to financial conditions now, to something that is out of their control.
Max Kettner, got to leave it there. Always great to catch up with you. Thank you. HSBC's multi-asset strategist joining us here in New York City, Tom.
Yeah, it's a swirl of news, and I'm going to go back to what's going on here, and we see it with BOE, which is it's not just China trade. There's more going on here, including global slowdown and the reaction of central banks. To John, it's a theme for today, lower for longer.
Sterling a little bit weaker than 128.31 on cable. Futures positive 11 points on the S&P 500, up around about 1/3 of 1%. From New York, this is Bloomberg.
And now the news in New York City. Here's Michael Barr.
Tom, Lisa, Jonathan, thank you very much. Funerals began today for 9 members of an American family on their way to a wedding when they were killed during an ambush in northern Mexico. Mexican officials say the shooting may have been a case of mistaken identity, but relatives of the victims say the family was targeted by the drug cartels. A new poll shows Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg are in a dead heat in Iowa among Democratic presidential contenders. The Quinnipiac University poll finds Warren has 20% of likely caucus goers. Buttigieg has 19%. Bernie Sanders follows with 17%, and Joe Biden is fourth in 15%. President Trump traveled to Monroe, Louisiana to support Republican businessman Eddie Rispone in the governor's race against incumbent Democrat John Bel Edwards. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Lisa, Jonathan, Tom.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Lots going on the data front. All you need to know is melt up. Futures up a nice solid 14 this morning. Stay with us worldwide. This is Bloomberg.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Why has JD...
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything. Or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
3 is a magic number. 300 schemes to help bugs and bees, supporting environmental needs. 8,000 grants for local sports, and performing arts get our support. 7 millionaires every week. The nation's on a winning streak. 30 million pounds to good causes every week. Who'd have thought it? These are magic numbers.
Your numbers make amazing happen. 25 years of the National Lottery.
Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Hiya. Oh, give me one of your chicken selects.
No.
Please, I've done my back in again.
You seemed totally fine when you walked.
And my boyfriend split up with me. Came home to find him with my sister.
Didn't know you had a sister. Is there anything I can do?
One of your chicken selects will cheer me up.
Tender chicken breast strips seasoned with a crispy coating. Chicken selects from McDonald's. Get your own.
Come on, please give me one.
Served after 10:30 a.m., except in selected restaurants which will serve this from 11 a.m.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Alex Steele on Daybreak Americas.
For more on Uber, Mandeep Singh, a Bloomberg Intelligence senior technology analyst, joins me and Romain. So, come on, really? I mean, they say they're going to path to profitability, and the street's like, forget it, we're down 8%. Why?
Well, it's the user growth. So for any internet company, user growth matters. In this case, the user growth is decelerating, but you have to look at the reasons why. They're raising prices, they're cutting down subsidies. Both of them help them with profitability. And at the end of the day, both Uber and Lyft are trying to follow profitable niches within ride sharing, which is a big market. They're focusing on corporate rides, airport rides, which are more profitable. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
So I don't think anyone's questioned sort of the staying power of ride sharing itself. But then when you look at Uber, I mean, they've got all these side businesses. They clearly are trying to get users to be in Uber Eats and be in all these other sort of services. If those users don't gravitate to those other services, does the business model still work?
Well, we know the business model works in the U.S. and Canada when it comes to core ride sharing. Their EBITDA margins are north of 20%, in fact 22%, and they gave the disclosure last night. It doesn't work yet in food delivery because food delivery market is very fragmented. Everyone is trying to grab market share using subsidies. Eventually, it will.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. 7:17 on Wall Street. Bloomberg Daybreak is out on customer terminals, bringing you all the news you need to start your day. Brought to you by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Learn why the world's most sophisticated advisory firms and broker-dealers rely on Pershing to help them improve profitability, create efficiency, attract talent, and manage risk at Pershing.com. Now let's check the latest headlines with Hannah George at the Bloomberg Daybreak desk. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning, Karen. The US and China agreed to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases. That's according to China, which says both sides should withdraw existing levies in the same proportion simultaneously. Rudy Giuliani is stirring up the impeachment probe, tweeting that his controversial work with Ukraine was done solely as a defense attorney for President Trump. The statement undercuts White House claims that he was advancing US foreign policy. 2 former Twitter employees have been charged by the US for helping Saudi Arabia spy on dissidents by hacking into their accounts. The ex-employees were allegedly bribed to mine for data. And Disney's move into streaming will be in focus when the company reports earnings today. Investors will be looking for all the details they can get on the November 12th launch of Disney+. For all the news you need to start your day, check out Daybreak on your mobile phone on the Bloomberg Anywhere app. Karen.
Hannah, thank you. S&P futures up 11 points. Dow futures up 134. NASDAQ futures up 36. The DAX in Germany's up 0.7%. And the 10-year Treasury down 17 seconds, yield 1.87%. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thank you. Thank you very much. Live from New York City, alongside me, Lisa Abramowitz and Tom Keene. I'm Jonathan Ferro, live from the Bloomberg Year Ahead Summit with Facebook's Sheryl Sandberg coming up a little bit later today, and Tom Keene getting a price target on the S&P 500 from Sarah Jessica Parker in a couple of hours, I believe, Tom.
I am.
I look forward to that. Honestly, I'm really excited about that.
I think it was basically the largest fight in the Keene household was that the 80s or the 90s? Could some of the older children watch Miss Parker's vehicle?
So it's not Sex in the City, it's SPX in the City, right?
Oh, wow.
So bad. So bad.
You need to go home. That was terrible.
Sarah, the economist. Sarah
I'm sort of ashamed of myself.
Sarah Jessica Parker. She's coming up later. Do you want to bring in Damien?
But after that intro, I think Damien wants me to bring in Damien. Damien Sassar with us. And Damien, we just spoke with Max Kettner of HSBC with a very cautious view on this huge market move and what do you do further. And a lot of his theory is EM and international aren't really following on from the developed nation blue chip high. Are they removed from this effervescence that
Tom,
we're seeing?
I have to agree with a lot of what Max said. I mean, look, is now the time to go out in the freezing cold, put 2 fists in the concrete, do 50 push-ups with poultry and soybeans on our back? I don't think so. I'd be fading the risk-on move here. I mean, for me, it comes down to this. You know, the risk-on playbook is simple. You short vol, you get long carry, and you go down in quality. Well, short vol, we're 1.5 to 2 standard deviations below an implied Basel across every EM and DM currency cross we've seen. Where do you find carry? 10 of 22 EM currencies, carry to vol ratios are negative. So where are you going to find your carry? And down in quality, we really haven't seen it yet. So I agree with what Max said about high yield tracking global equities, and you probably don't want to go there, but I actually like EM US dollar denominated EM high yield credit because I think there's some value dislocations there.
Why is that, Damien? Why?
Well, I just think the fact of the matter is high yield is not an area where institutional investors can really take a nibble. I mean, they're really prevented from doing that. So it really hasn't tracked with the spread tightening we've seen in a lot of investment grade debt. And so I do like some of the names like Teva and JBS and EM. I think there's some value there. Some of the frontier sovereigns as well.
I guess I'm a little concerned about the potential defaults. Argentina, Ecuador, Lebanon just downgraded to very near to default. Don't you care about that?
Well, they're very, look, don't get me wrong, you have to pick your spots, but I don't think defaults are really going to matter unless it's going to be an IG name in EM, until we see something like, I'm not going to throw any names out there because I'll get in trouble, but, the way you see that contagion... The way you see contagion spread from EM into the broader asset classes is when it comes from an unexpected location, So frontier sovereigns are expected to have their ups and downs, but if you see something happen in IG, all bets are off.
I want to ask you, with your years of experience, how this up move is different from the previous silliness we've seen. We're stretching out, not to over, but we're stretching out 2 standard deviations onto 3 on too many bull market metrics. Why is it different this time?
Well, why is it different? I think it's probably happening on relatively low volume. The fact of the matter is we've seen long-short equity managers. There's evidence to me that basically managers are getting long their gross exposure. They're taking down their net exposure, which means they're punting into year-end. They've been underperforming all these broad benchmarks, right? So I would actually believe that you're seeing a little bit of that going into year-end.
Year-end starting earlier than it usually starts.
Exactly. And we still have this big risk in the cross-currency basis and the Fed plumbing and GSIBs with foreign banks that have to borrow dollars into year-end because they're short. These are all risks to the market, and I'd be fading it.
Do I get out of cash now, or, John, do I wait for your beginning March 15th?
I thought your whole thing was just stay in cash.
That's what it's been.
Cash funding. And just stay there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about duration just quickly, Damien. Treasuries are getting really hammered. On bad days, treasuries don't rally that much anymore. On good days, they sell off hard.
Yeah.
And yields are up now another 6 basis points in today's session to about 188.
I love it.
View on what's happening in the bond market at the moment.
Yeah, no, I'd love to be getting long duration at some of these levels. We're starting to get this. So yeah, look, we're not at 2% yet on 10s, but we're getting pretty close. I think 180s, 190 nearly. And I think the fact of the matter is, if you're everyone's neutral duration now. Nobody wants to make a call, but I think there's no question about it. When we get to levels like this, people are going to start nibbling away on the long end just because there's no carry. Again, Jonathan, there's no carry to be found in EM local. It's just not what it once was. And the fact of the matter is, you carry really well here in the U.S.
What does it mean? What does carry?
It means that you borrow in dollars, and then you
fund in dollars. So basically, it's the differential between a local currency yield and the LIBOR equivalent.
And they've gone away.
Yeah, they've compressed very significantly. Okay. Again, 10 of 22 EM currencies have negative carry.
Well, no, I can't wait to talk to you the next time, Damien, to really talk about these leakages away from the China trade war over to these other nations, the nations you follow every day. Mr. Sassower with us this morning. Of course, he's with Bloomberg with a real focus on emerging markets. We had a focus on up 15 on futures, now up 11. Dow futures up 127. The VIX, we're getting that responsiveness, that elasticity of a bull market, nicely under 13, 12.62 is where the VIX is right now. Yield markets correlate with the up equities. 10-year yield up 5 basis points, 30-year bond up 5 basis points as well. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce says China and the U.S. have agreed to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal between the two sides. That's giving a lift to the stock futures this morning, with Dow futures up 135 points. Crude oil is elevated. It's up 1%, almost back to $57 a barrel this morning. Later today, we'll hear from Disney and its earnings results, and we get a check of the job market today with the weekly snapshot of jobless claims. Britain's largest free-to-air commercial broadcaster, ITV, has launched its new UK streaming service with the BBC in an attempt to win back viewers from digital rivals like Netflix and Amazon. The BritBox offering, which costs the equivalent of just under $8 a month, includes box sets of shows such as Downton Abbey and past episodes of the hit reality TV series Love Island. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills, the kind of skills that companies need to build real products, and the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduate coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
At Argos, get them the toys they're dreaming of this Christmas. Save 20% when you spend £20 or more on toys with code TOYS20, including top brands like Peppa Pig and Lego. Enjoy same-day home delivery 7 days a week. With Argos, you're good to go. Offer ends the 12th of November, subject to availability. Exclusions apply. Delivery conditions apply. Order by 6 p.m. 90% UK coverage.
Hiya. Oh, give me one of your chicken selects.
No.
Please, I've done my back in again.
You seem totally fine when you walk.
And my boyfriend split up with me. Came home to find him with my sister.
Didn't know you had a sister. Is there anything I can do?
One of your chicken selects will cheer me up.
Tender chicken breast strips seasoned with a crispy coating. Chicken selects from McDonald's. Get your own.
Come on, please give me one.
Served after 10:30 a.m, except in selected restaurants, which will serve this from 11 a.m.
Fancy trading up this weekend? Get £4,100 scrappage or part exchange value on a new Grandland X with 4.9% APR representative, plus a further £600 at participating Vauxhall retailers from the 8th to the 11th of November. Visit your Vauxhall retailer now or search Vauxhall Trade Up. T's and C's apply. Trade-in car must be registered in your name for at least 90 days. Conditional sale and personal contract purchase only. Subject to status 18 plus Vauxhall Finance. Other deposit contributions may be available if you don't have a trade-in vehicle. Ends 26th of November.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
With the new Halifax Family Boost mortgage, children can get help to buy their first home, and mum and dad earn interest on their savings. Everyone's a winner. The new Halifax Family Boost mortgage. Halifax makes it happen.
Your home and savings could be at risk if mortgage repayments are not maintained. Only available in England and Wales. One applicant must hold a Halifax Reward or Ultimate Reward current account. Conditions and exclusions apply.
Will cancer affect my sex life?
Your sex drive can disappear. The side effects may stop you.
Sex life can easily stay.
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio, 2 hours away from the opening bell. The news you need to know this hour. U.S. equity futures and European stocks gaining as China says it has agreed with the White House to conditionally remove tariffs in phases if a phase 1 deal is ultimately reached. The Commerce Ministry says the amount of initial tariff relief would depend on the content of any phase 1 agreement. Over in Europe, the Bank of England keeping interest rates unchanged, though two policymakers unexpectedly dissented with votes to lower the benchmark rate by 25 basis points. In Germany, we have data showing industrial production used to worsen. German output fell 0.6% in the month of September, with manufacturing fueling the decline. And the EU warning things could get worse for the continent. The European Commission cutting its Eurozone growth forecast for the next 2 years. Some of the stories we'll be talking about through the next couple of hours then on Bloomberg Radio. Time now for some headlines from elsewhere. Let's say good morning to Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Tom. President Trump pushed back on reports that he tried to get the Justice Department to defend him over that phone call with Ukraine that sparked the Democrats' impeachment inquiry. President Trump writing on Twitter that it is, quote, totally untrue that he asked Attorney General William Barr to hold a press conference and say that he broke no laws in his phone call with Ukraine. Several media outlets reported the president pushed Barr to clear his name over the call. Barr is said to have declined the request. President Trump reacted to House Democrats' announcement that the public hearings in the congressional impeachment inquiry begin next week.
A coup has started, and the impeachment will follow. Ultimately, it's all a hoax. It's a scam.
The president spoke at a rally in Monroe, Louisiana last night. The first funerals are being held today for some of the 9 American women and children killed when drug cartel gunmen opened fire on their convoy in northern Mexico Monday. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Jonathan.
Michael Barr, thank you, sir. It's time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here is John Stashower.
John, it's a new season, a lot of new players, but it's the same old Knicks. Worst record in the NBA last season, and again so far this year, they're 1-7. They lost by 20 at Detroit. Andre Drummond scored 27 points. Tony Snell had 24. He shot 9 for 9. 6 of those were three-pointers. Julius Randle led the Knicks with 20 at the Garden. Rangers with 5 different goal scorers, 35 saves from Henrik Lundqvist. They got back to 500, a 5-1 win over Detroit. Mike Anderson's the new coach at St. John's, replacing Chris Mullen. His first game was a 30-point blowout of Mercer. Mustafa Heron with 25 points. Virginia, the defending national champs, opening up not only with an ACC game, but the first defending champ to start the next season on the road since 1967. And Virginia won at Syracuse 48-34. That was the low-scoring final. North Carolina beat Notre Dame. Star freshman Cole Anthony, his father Greg, a former Knick, 34 points in his first game. Giants will be without tight end Evan Engram Sunday against the Jets due to an injured foot. The Jets hope to have Le'Veon Bell. He didn't practice due to a knee injury. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. John?
John Stashower, thank you. John Stashower there with the sports. You've had the news. Let's get you some price action. Equity futures advanced 0.4% on the S&P 500, up a little more than 11 points as the optimism around the trade story continues to build. Equities higher, treasuries lower, yields pop by 5 basis points on a 10-year to 188, on a 2-year note 164. And in foreign exchange, as risk appetite improves, the dollar just a touch weaker here, the euro firmer, euro stronger, euro dollar higher by almost 0.1%. From New York, this is Bloomberg.
From our world headquarters in New York, good morning, everyone. Bloomberg Surveillance, thrilled that you're with us this morning with another lift to the market. The Bloomberg NJIT STEM report brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology. They offer hands-on learning and the largest makerspace in New Jersey for those working in manufacturing and mechatronics. More at njit.edu/manufacturing. Here's John Tucker.
Yeah, Tom and John, let's see what's making news in science, technology, engineering, and math. The remains of an ancient ape found in a Bavarian clay pit suggest that humans' ancestors began standing upright millions of years earlier than previously thought. An international team of researchers says the fossilized partial skeleton of a male ape that lived almost 12 million years ago in the humid forests of what is now southern Germany bears a striking resemblance to modern human bones. In a paper published by the journal Nature, they conclude that the previously unknown species could walk on two legs, but also climb like an ape. The findings raise fundamental questions about our previous understanding of the evolution of great apes and humans. Over the course of 3 years, NASA flew a plane carrying gas imaging equipment above California and made a discovery that surprised even the state's own environmental agencies. A handful of operations are responsible for the vast majority of methane emissions. In a report published in Nature, scientists estimate that 10% of the places releasing methane, including landfills, natural gas facilities, and dairy farms, are responsible for more than half of the state's total emissions. Now, methane is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide in trapping heat and contributing to global warming. And that is today's Bloomberg NJIT STEM report.
John Tucker, thank you so much. Five things you need to know to start your up day in the equity markets. Brought to you by Portfolio Analysts, powered by Interactive Brokers. Savvy investors, they use Portfolio Analyst to create a consolidated view of their finances and check the health of their complete financial portfolio. Sign up for free. Do that at portfolioanalyst.com. Okay, trade is out there. John, it's another great day, but is it just trade, or is there more going on than that?
Well, I think at the moment, if you look at the equity market in the session overnight so far, quite clearly got a big part of the headline that the Chinese and the Ministry of Commerce there saying that the United States has agreed to tariff rollback. But there's just such a massive if. The United States and China may well have agreed to tariff rollback, but the if is more important if a deal is ultimately reached. And right now, they're still negotiating it. So there is no phase one deal, there is no tariff rollback.
There's got to be more to this equity lift, and is it just a misjudgment of the gloom?
Does there have to be more to it? I mean, honestly, if you look at the actual earnings, I was just looking at some data showing that right now, S&P, if the analyst expectations are correct, earnings growth at the S&P 500 companies will be the slowest in 4 years. And it has gone down to 0.8% for the fourth quarter, down from 7.1% as recently as July. This is the expectation for consensus. I mean, what does that give lift?
I look at what we've got now on the lift, almost buying the rumor, selling the news. And the rumor was gloomy earnings, and we're coming out of it with some serious adjustment. But again, focused. And Max Kettner at HSBC, I thought he was really pushing back on it and saying it ain't happening abroad, and that's with the HSBC authority that they own in Asia.
Quite clearly, though, Tom, the bias of the market has shifted. On the days where you have good, positive news, the Treasury market is selling off much harder than the Treasury market is rallying on a day when you have negative news, and that's a real shift over the last few months.
I agree on the correlation as well. I want to bring up Lex. I thought did a fabulous job in the FT today. It was exceptionally strong on story after story, and one of them is Sanford C. Bernstein's analysis of We Company. And this is a quiet thing that's out there, whether it's We Company or Uber. Those shares you didn't sell yesterday, right? You had that limit order at 30, John.
Why are you always trying to get me in trouble?
Well, you got 8,000 shares at the opening.
Can we not just pick on Lisa instead?
No, we got to pick on you. But
don't worry, it's coming, John.
Lex took the Bernstein research, and they said, look, what really is the value of We Company? And I just bring this up. There's some real mysteries out there in the accounting world right now.
What's the value of a company if it's not entirely open to market forces and there's only one bid, and that bid has been SoftBank for much of the last few years?
And the question that I have is, where is the systemic bleed through? Because you have mutual funds that have invested in some of these private shares, and they have a lot of discretion in terms of how they value these companies that already have questionable accounting.
Quick word on the Bank of England. Your thoughts? I mean, I thought this would be a total snooze. We're going into election month. It's 1 month, 5 weeks away.
It's the GDP markdowns, and as you said, John, in the back of the EU.
Unbelievable, Tom.
Yeah,
to have two policymakers, though, but Tom, to have two policymakers put their hand up a month away from election and call for a rate cut, that's big. Unchanged, the vote's 7-2, but I was surprised there were two there voting for a 25 basis point
and
cut.
not talking about the UK economy, but again, what's going on outside of the UK, mirroring some of the same rhetoric we're hearing out of Fed officials. In the US, everything looks fine. Globally, not so much. Where is the problem?
The news conference has just started over on Threadneedle Street. Governor Carney says risks to the UK growth are skewed to the downside. So the balance of risks around the outlook, this is key here. For the Federal Reserve, I think for them, the balance of risk has improved. Still somewhat tilted to the downside, but for Governor Carney, I think quite clearly, growth skewed to the downside going forward from here.
Can I rip with the script?
You can do whatever you like.
I was waltzing down Madison Avenue last night, and there's a store from Scotland, Bora, which is like wool sweaters, beautiful kid. Helena Bonham Carter, large for Bora this season. She's killing it in the crowd. I mean, she's just killing it.
Are you still watching that?
We're going to watch it. It's on our bucket list for the weekend.
Okay.
When we're done with Man City, Liverpool, we're all crowned.
That's the big game. This Sunday at Anfield. Are you watching that?
I will try to watch it.
You can come around mine and watch it.
What I remember is last year it was my most enjoyable football
I remember you actually watched more than 2 minutes of the highlights.
I did. I watched 7 minutes, and thank you, YouTube.
Is that all I have to do?
Just watch 2 minutes.
No, 2 minutes. To keep up with Farrell, YouTube highlights.
Okay, you got it.
Trick for the day.
YOU.
Stay with us worldwide. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Ladies and gents, may I introduce a magical number? 25! Oh yes, 25 UK millionaires guaranteed in this Friday's Euro Millions.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
This weekend,
Volvo are offering 0% APR finance on a Volvo Select approved used car, which means this weekend 0% of your morning run playlist will be listened to. So visit your local Volvo retailer this weekend and drive home an approved used car with 0% APR finance. You could run there, if you like.
Available on used vehicles up to 4 years old. Participating retailers. 50% minimum deposit on minimum finance amount of £7,000. Conditional sale, terms and conditions apply. Finance subject to status. 18 plus. Guarantee may be required. Volvo Car Financial Services.
There's It's a Sunny Thursday Afternoon happy. Listening to a banger happy. There's no traffic on the M1 happy. The girls' night out is this weekend happy. There's only 48 days until Christmas happy. It's almost lunchtime happy. Getting your tyres changed over your lunch break with a free coffee happy. You get that kind of happy from QuickFit in Watford. Book on your mobile now at quickfit.com and drive away happy. Terms and conditions apply.
News 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo sounding the alarm this morning over Iran resuming nuclear enrichment, issuing a statement saying Iran is, quote, positioning itself to have the option of a rapid nuclear breakout. Pompeo is demanding that all nations take serious steps to increase pressure on Iran. The first of the funerals for the 9 American family members massacred in Mexico are getting underway this morning in the small village of La Mora, with Mexican soldiers standing guard. Old Man Winter's planning a visit back east by this weekend.
Saturday morning, much of the eastern third of the United States, you're going to have temperatures below freezing. 20s and teens in a lot of areas in the Northeast, 20s in the Mid-Atlantic region, lower to mid-30s in the Deep South, and that's certainly going to cause a frost and freeze risk there by Saturday morning.
That's meteorologist Brian Hurley of the government's National Storm Prediction Center. Stock futures gaining on positive news about U.S.-China trade. I'm Michael Toscano.
You can't be the only one who spends time examining angles.
This deal, what would it look like?
You're right. The others are here.
Is he doing a good job, you think?
Bloomberg Markets, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. stock index futures are climbing along with European shares after China said it agreed with the U.S. to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. Treasuries and gold are declining. The pound weakened after 2 Bank of England policymakers unexpectedly voted for an interest rate cut. And as Mark Carney said, risks to U.K. growth are skewed to the downside. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are up about 12 points. Dow futures up 136. NASDAQ futures up 41. The DAX in Germany's up 0.7%. 10-year Treasury down 16/30 seconds. Yield 1.87%. Yield on the 2-year 1.64%. NYMEX crude oil is up 1.25% or 71 cents at 57.06 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.6% or $8.30 at 14.84.80 an ounce. The euro 1.1071 against the dollar. British pound 1.2811 and the yen is at 109.15. Sources tell Bloomberg another large block trade in Uber Technologies priced overnight in the wake of its IPO lockup period expiration. Morgan Stanley sold 2 million shares on behalf of an unknown holder at $26.75 each, a 0.71% discount to yesterday's closing price. And Teva forecasting revenue for the full year. The guidance met the average analyst estimate. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. Greatly appreciate it. John, CIBC Bank is out of Toronto. It is the old Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, and very quietly over the decades they've put together an absolutely first-rate team, including Benjamin Tal, who is the #1 guy I know on the self-employed in America. He is encyclopedic on this part-time, full-time debate, and it's wonderful when someone from Toronto darkens the door here so we can crowbar Leafs tickets out of him.
Oh, is that what he's here for?
That's the only reason he's here is to hand me the Leafs tickets.
Is that the basketball team in Toronto?
No, that is very good. Leafs Canadians would be what we're asking for, John.
I'm joking. Bipan Rai joining us now, CIBC Capital Markets Senior Macro Strategist. Good morning to you, Bipan.
Good morning.
Shall we begin with that Bank of England rate decision? Personally, I thought this was going to be a total snooze going into the election next month. I guess we were wrong. Two people on the MPC voting for a rate cut. They didn't get it. The vote was 7-2. Your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised by the two dissenters because, again, if you pay attention to what Saunders and Vlahey have been saying for the last several months, it certainly seemed like they were more sympathetic towards a rate cut going forward. The other thing that kind of surprised me was the fact that they kept in the language around limited and gradual rate hikes going forward. And I guess they didn't want to tip the boat too much during an election campaign.
I'm trying to understand where the global risks are that everyone keeps talking about. If it's not necessarily in Europe, which seems to be getting better, if it's not coming from the U.S., not coming from the UK with Brexit, where is it coming from?
It's the trade talks. I mean, it's between the U.S. and China, and what I think is underappreciated, between the U.S. and the EU. Nobody ever talks about the U.S. and the EU, but we just had tariffs launched on Airbus a couple of weeks ago, I should say. And we've also got the big decision coming on autos. Nobody talks about that, but that's a significant macro risk that we need to pay attention to.
What are your thoughts on that at the moment? I caught up with Larry Kudlow, the National Economic Council Director, last Friday, and he always points to the weakness coming out of Europe weighing on the U.S. economy. Do you think there's an acknowledgement from the U.S. side that actually going after Europe at this point might not be a great decision?
I think there is some sympathy to potentially opening the door towards talks with the EU. I mean, at the same time, you don't want to see a new front opened on the trade war between the US and the EU. And certainly, taking the comments that we heard from Wilbur Ross last week, it certainly seems like they're willing to push out the deadlines for coming to a decision on tariffs.
The Chinese Ministry of Commerce speaking overnight, saying that the Chinese in the United States have agreed on tariff rollback, but with a massive asterisk. They've agreed on it if there's a phase one deal that they can agree to, and right now there isn't a phase one deal to agree to. I have a question for you that I think is going to be increasingly an important one if we do get tariff rollback. Is the boost to economic activity from tariffs coming off proportional to the damage done from tariffs going on? How should we be thinking about that at the moment?
Right. I mean, if we're talking about the real economy, I don't think so. I think there are other structural headwinds towards business investment coming online. I mean, we are in a new trade regime. We didn't have to deal with a tariff war between the two largest economies in the past. This is a new regime that business has to have to become accustomed to. And certainly if we do see some tariff rollbacks, you might see some beneficiaries being, more so the U.S. consumer as opposed to U.S. businesses. I think it's a new path for them to wade through.
Bipan Rai with us with CIBC World Markets. Bipan, yen is always a proxy for global Wall Street, of correlation and a safe haven well. Does that math work right now? And right now, 109.15 grinding, but it has been a weaker yen. Is that a healthy signal of all clear?
For the time being, I would say yes. It's probably conducive towards risk appetite being on the rebound. And again, it's much more of a global liquidity story and a positive sentiment story potentially from the U.S.
But it's a well-behaved time series. It's grinding, I'll get that, but there's a persistency to this yen weakness. What does that signal?
It signals to me that, again, rate divergence between the U.S. and Japan is pretty much minimal right now compared to where we've seen in the past. I mean, if we're talking about dollar yen, we have to talk about where the policy settings are in the United States versus where they are in Japan. And again, if you do see a meaningful divergence, then that's when you get the directional breakout.
This is critical. What Bipan just said, John, we were talking about this in the break. Policy divergence. There doesn't seem to be any. They're all reacting to what IMF led on, which is lower GDP growth estimates.
This has been a big question, though, for FX markets over the last couple of years, Bipan, as to whether rate differentials matter and to what degree rate differentials matter for foreign exchange.
Absolutely. In a world where central banks are increasing asset purchases and where balance sheets are exorbitantly large, and when they're dominant in the market, rate divergences will matter.
And Lisa, this was John Lipsky's question to Charles Evans yesterday on the correlation of all these central bank messages that we're getting.
Well, and there's a question, the low inflation environment, have we underestimated how persistent and how long-lasting it'll be? And the European Commission today cutting its euro area growth and inflation outlook, despite some of the better-than-expected data we've gotten out of Germany with the PMIs. Do you think they're right?
Yeah, I do think so. And I don't think central bankers have been held accountable for the fact they've been missing their inflation targets for the last decade. I do think there's a problem with inflation targeting.
What's behind that?
It might be that the policy is outdated. It might be that the mandate needs to be updated to reflect a different inflation mandate, or maybe they should be targeting something else. Central bankers have become very, very good over the past couple of decades at targeting 2% inflation, almost too good, to the point where inflation volatility is minimal now. Right, so maybe there's something else that central bankers should be looking at going forward.
Well, when you talk about the European outlook right now, they're saying that the worst is to come. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that too, that the worst for the European economy is to come perhaps next year?
It's a distinct possibility because we haven't seen any sort of fiscal or movement towards fiscal stimulus from some of the larger economies that have the space.
How will that translate in markets?
At this point, in my space, we still see euro-dollar range-bound, and that's predominantly because, again, U.S. manufacturing is somewhat on the decline as well, and there is some risk that could percolate into the consumer and labor sectors.
Germany on the brink of recession, arguably for some people already in one. The DAX is up 26% through 2019.
Right.
How do you reconcile some of these things right now?
Again, it's a liquidity story. I mean, if you have this massive amount of liquidity in the system, if you have all this cash in the system, it's got to go somewhere. And for some people, even if there is a slowdown in the global economy, I want to put my cash into something that's yielding something positive at least.
But isn't it the x-axis, not only the observation of the wall of money out there, but lower for longer has a new definition.
Right.
Going into the new year. Am I right on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's very little. I mean, when you talk about monetary policy, you're effectively pushing on a string right now. I mean, there's only so much that the ECB can do. It's not a story of credit supply. It's a story of credit demand. And right now, there's no credit demand in the Eurozone, and that's driven by fiscal growth or fiscal stimulus.
We had Max Kettner of HSBC on the programme around about 55 minutes ago, who was pushing back quite strongly against some of this enthusiasm for risk assets at the moment. Would you do the same thing?
At this point, no. I'm still playing the liquidity story. I still do think that, even if you're in a global environment where the economy's not doing so well, you've got enough liquidity out there. It seems like this lower for longer environment's going to last. I'm not so concerned about an equity meltdown at this point.
So right now we are seeing a sell-off in bonds, in particular in U.S. 10-year treasuries. Would you be a buyer here?
At this point, I mean, I'd have to look at the technical level, but yeah, I'd look at potentially at buying U.S. bonds.
Really, 190 on a 10-year gets it done.
Yeah.
Does that bring the buying back in?
We're in a new regime now. I do think that the risks are skewed towards the Fed potentially easing again, although that's not our house view. Our house view is potentially that they're going to stay on hold for the next little while. But again, I am watching employment numbers. I'm watching the consumer sector in the U.S. And again, if that manufacturing weakness does percolate into that, that's a new regime for the Fed to navigate there.
So 1.9 could be the ceiling, and what's the floor for 10-year treasury yields?
You're going to make me call that.
Yeah, negative yields in the U.S. You calling that?
No, not at this point. No. We need to be in a recession, and we need to see some other factors.
We found that outside of recessionary conditions through this cycle, life below 150 on a 10-year is really quite tough, Bipan.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, again, it has to be a deep and meaningful recession, I think, to move below that 150 mark. But look at yields elsewhere. I mean, look at the 10-year yield in Japan. Look at the 10-year yield in German bunds. I mean, it's very expensive to be short the U.S. dollar for a reason.
I can get you a positive yield in France this morning on a 10-year. Just your yield now, 0.005%.
Oh, there you go.
We haven't had a real move this morning, Tom.
Pippin, one final question very quickly here on Canadian dollar. Is it a commodity play, or is it just trading off U.S. and U.S. dollar?
It's a U.S. dollar play at this point.
Yeah,
I mean, the commodity play, I think that story is overblown. But we're bearish on the Canadian dollar. We do think the Canadian dollar CAD should go to 140 by the end of next year.
Well, the tickets I want are only original 6. I'll take the St. Louis Blues, but just, original, not the Rangers.
Should we do this
The Rangers are so
instead
weak.
Of on air?
Right.
The Rangers are so puny. I don't want to see Rangers Leafs in Toronto. Do you?
Bipan, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What about the Raptors?
CIBC Capital Markets Senior Macro Strategist. Is that the ice hockey team?
You're killing it.
I'm good, aren't I? You like that?
Thank you. I didn't know.
Equity futures with a lift this morning. The S&P 500 up 12 points on the S&P 500. We advance in the bond market. Treasuries lower, yields higher, up 6 basis points on a 10-year to 1.88%. From New York at the Bloomberg Year Ahead Summit, you're listening to Bloomberg Surveillance.
This winter, why not take the short flight from London to Dublin with Aer Lingus from just $32.99 each way as part of a return trip. From coastal walks to cozy pubs and friendly locals, you'll find so much to enjoy once you're there. Smart takes a Dublin city break. Smart flies Aer Lingus. Book now at airlingus.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Ladies and gents, may I introduce a magical number? 25! Oh yes, 25 25 UK millionaires guaranteed in this Friday's Euro Millions.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Do you remember picking out your engagement ring in the jeweller's window? Or choosing your first home? Or deciding the names of your children? When it comes to the important choices in life, you've always taken the greatest care. So shouldn't the same go for which firm of funeral directors you use? After all, that's an important choice too. At Dignity Funeral Directors, we're like you. We also take the greatest care. Our name is your assurance we'll be there by your side every step of the way. Just look for the sign that says Dignity. It's on all our branches and on the Dignity website. Dignity Funeral Directors, taking the greatest care.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
American economic power and future depends on trade deals.
In many of these countries, we're still seeing people struggling.
Finance.
We're in this vortex of uncertainty.
These big companies, they just sometimes lack focus.
Investment.
The markets have become a little bit too addicted to the Fed.
Timing the market is just so difficult.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Bloomberg Surveillance. Thank you for being with us from New York today. Good morning, Boston. 106.1 FM in Boston, 99.1 FM in Washington. Beautiful sunrise down in Washington today. Notice that as well. Good morning, Bloomberg 1130 in New York, San Francisco in your early morning, and on Sirius XM channel 119 nationwide. We say good morning to you. Futures up 12, Dow futures up 136. Risk on fuel. That's your headline this morning. Those of you behind in the market, like me, probably would want to note that yields come out here now on the 2-year yield, a 10-year yield, 2% watch. We're not there, 1.88% up 5 basis points in the 10-year. I'm going to still call it range bound, even though we're buttressed up against some of those recent highs in yields. We see as well dollar fractional weakness this morning. Bloomberg Surveillance this morning brought to you by Cohn Resnick. Planning a transaction, your tax strategy into a competitive advantage. To learn how, visit Cohn Resnick's Capital Markets Tax Resource Center at CohnResnick.com/tax insight. John, really trade, I will say, driving the conversation today, but that ain't all.
Front and center, I should also mention for our listeners just tuning in, the little bit of sound disruption, that subtle disruption around us at the moment. The Bloomberg Year Ahead Summit, Lisa. Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook will be speaking to us in around about 1 hour's time, I believe. I think you can hear that on Bloomberg Radio.
Yep. She's got
and
a
on
little
Bloomberg
bit to
TV.
talk about,
I think she's got a lot to talk about.
On the hot seat, for sure. And we're also going to be, of course, speaking with Sarah Jessica Parker about her view on markets.
You're really excited about that, aren't you?
I am. I can't help myself. You know, I think that her market view will be prescient.
Tom Keene.
I'm not going there.
He's not going there. He refuses to go there. Let's do the data check, shall we? Treasury's lower, yields are higher by 6 basis points to 188. Your comments overnight regarding the trade story. Yesterday, we found out, according to several reports, that the summit between President Xi and Trump could be delayed into December. Then the Chinese Ministry of Commerce spoke overnight, declaring that the United States and China have essentially agreed to tariff rollback through a series of phases if, Tom, and a massive if they come to some kind of agreement over a phase one deal, and right now they haven't.
I read the story carefully out of Beijing, and the key word you said, John, is series. They're not talking about one rollback. They're talking about some form of sequence, which to me is ephemeral to Washington.
Proportional to the things that have been agreed within the original phase one, phase two, phase three.
It doesn't matter. Right now, the market just wants a deal, any deal. They want the tension off the table, and that's what we're seeing bleed through in the future.
Okay, so what do you make of it that actually we don't have a deal? There is no phase one agreement. We were waiting for a signing ceremony in the middle of this month, and now we're talking about December. We have no date, we have no time, we have no location.
At least we don't have escalation. That's what people say. And frankly, the data's coming in better than expected across the world. So people are saying, you know what, we've priced in too much pessimism. There's a lot of liquidity. Let's go for risk.
Sarah Jessica Parker has escalation with the orange fields that she just walked by us.
Did she?
Yes.
Did she glare at us?
Yeah. I don't think they were Louboutin. I don't think they were Louboutin. Why don't you pick it up, John?
I'm going to bring in Michael Metcalf, State Street Global Head of Macro Strategy. He joins us from London. Michael, always great to get your views. Please walk me through what you're communicating to clients at the moment regarding this trade story.
Well, look, the trade story, as we know, and as it has been demonstrated in the last 24 hours, is extremely volatile. But this is a good step. If the deal is agreed, and it still remains an if, we have a path now, actually, for the tariffs not just to stabilize, but to fall. And that suggests that tail risks are going down. The data is telling us the same thing. The trade war narrative is beginning to say the same thing. So it's, be less defensive.
Michael, you say the deal. What is the deal, and does it even matter?
Yeah, no, it does matter. And look, the deal, I think, originally was just, okay, what can we get to stop the tariffs going up again in December? And then, and I think now what it's morphing towards is, not just a truce, but actually, how can we begin to roll this back? Look, the average tariff rate on Chinese goods has gone from 5 to over 20%. It's quadrupled. And so we just need to start rolling it back.
Michael, a question that I asked a guest previously, Bipan Rai, around about 5 minutes ago. Just a simple one, and I want you to think this through and perhaps try and give us an answer. The boost to economic activity that you could get from tariffs coming off, is it proportional to the damage done from tariffs going on?
I wished I was listening 5 minutes ago to see what your previous guest said. But look, I think it's difficult to quantify because there's been a very lagged impact on not just export but also investment spending. Yeah. This is about sentiment. It isn't about the exports. It's about sentiment and investment spending.
Well,
sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, please continue.
But I think just the idea that they can stop and maybe walk back, then that's a boost to animal spirits, and you'll start to see that in the data.
You mentioned sentiment, Michael, and that's right where I wanted to go with you. I look at State Street as I look at Schwab. It's just a massive measurement of the mood of people. Okay, every guest is telling us there's a wall of money out there. What does State Street observe and how the wall is migrating? Is it migrating to an ever higher developed equity valuation? Is it migrating to some flavor of bonds? Or is it migrating to cash?
Well, look, I think the story of this year has been, it's partly been cash and money that has been put to work has been put to work in defensive assets. So, our measures of investor confidence, oddly, have been lower than business confidence and consumer confidence for quite some time. And it's actually only now in the last couple of months when business confidence has fallen that the economy is caught up with where investors already were. So, I think investors going into the end of this year actually, way more defensive than, the headlines about equity markets making new highs suggest.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that the defensive characteristic, anecdotally, I see, is off the chart.
Yeah, well, and I do have to wonder, though, heading into year-end about the repo man. And people were worried about this earlier, the sort of repo rate spiking again. And this is important, Michael Metcalf, because this indicates banks' ability to take on risk and their willingness. I know that Janus is raising money to actually take advantage of a repeat of what we saw in September's repo market turmoil. Do you expect the same thing?
Yeah, look, I think the repo market turmoil is we know it relates to the unwind of quantitative easing, and it looks like the fact that we've had spikes suggests the Fed sort of over-tightened to a degree, and that they're desperately trying to put liquidity back in. We also know that there are regulatory concerns. There's regulatory effects here that are causing it. What I don't think it is I don't necessarily think it's a symptom of stress in the market. I think this is just a normalization from quantitative tightening, and we haven't quite calibrated it right. So I wouldn't read it too negatively, but certainly it could cause disruption if it returns.
So I'm wondering, given the fact that we have that overhang, do you think that there is a limit to risk appetite as we see bleeding through with the CCC rated debt, as we see bleeding through with specific stocks that are falling out of bed?
Yeah, look, I mean, risk certainly isn't going to go up in a straight line. I mean, and that's one thing that we've learned very clearly this year. And I think that the other thing that I'm very sort of conscious of is that the trade war narrative itself has been very volatile, and as I started at the top of the program, that it's changed really just in the last 12 hours, and so and look, that is why investors have been defensive, is because we haven't had the conviction, and I think it needs to see now, for instance, a confirmation from the US that actually they agree that tariffs will be rolled back and all that kind of thing. So but I think the news that we've had overnight is a step in the right direction, at least.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful this morning.
Michael, thank you. Michael Metcalf there of State Street, the global head of macro strategy.
He's Cambridge Economics, and he's got a really different view. And folks, every firm is different. Like when we talk to HSBC, they have a huge Asian exposure. And State Street, John, has a flow knowledge like nobody.
You are the only person I know that knows the entire resume of every single guest we have on this program.
Well, Cambridge Economics is different. John Riding is Cambridge Economics, and it's very Chicago-y. You know, it's very, very fact-based. It's very different.
I know someone very Chicago-y.
Oh, no.
Bloomberg's Lisa Bravitz.
Yeah.
LSE is very Bloomsbury.
Bloomsbury. Well, you know, look, I think that right now the idea of going into risk is an interesting one, given how high valuations are. This idea of the wall of cash.
You're getting good at this.
What?
Pivoting away from our chit-chat and going back to something serious.
Where am I supposed to go with that?
Just carry on.
Chicago-y?
Just
really?
carry on.
Where am I supposed to go?
Just
Talk about like deep dish pizza?
You
Do you like? I'll play.
You're becoming very skilled at this.
All right. So Tom Keene, do you like deep dish pizza?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I remember it was in the Vogue like a million years ago. It was like for a brief shining moment.
In Chicago.
You see, you'll regret this. You'll ask stupid questions. You'll give you serious answers.
I mean, honestly, I agree. But okay, moving right along, though, I will say this, that the wall of money is a very interesting one. And I will say, I was just speaking with a pension fund manager who said that he's raising money. He does think that it's the top of the market. And
Interesting.
You see,
it's like the eighth guy I know who's raising money.
But this is it, the dry powder. At what point does that prolong this cycle, keep risk going, create that risk of, of just bleed up because of the wall of money?
Treasury yield high then. We're up 5 or 6 basis points on a 10-year. Your yield in the Treasury market, 1.879%.
And now the news in New York City. Here's Michael Barr.
Tom, Jonathan, Lisa, thank you very much. President Trump has pushed back after several media outlets claimed Attorney General William Barr refused to say publicly President Trump's call with Ukraine's president was not a quid pro quo involving withheld U.S. military aid. Trump tweeted the story was a fake Washington Post con job. The long-established Mormon community with dual citizenship living on the Mexico border will begin funerals today for the 3 mothers and 6 children who were on their way to a wedding earlier this week. They were killed in what may have been an ambush while traveling through a remote area while rival drug cartels have controlled. Iran has injected uranium gas into centrifuges deep inside its underground Fordo nuclear complex. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Jonathan, Tom, Lisa.
Michael Barr, thank you very much, sir. Global equity markets rally. Futures positive in the United States. Your outperformance comes from Europe. The DAX up 0.75% on the day, up by more than 20% on the year. This is Bloomberg.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
We could call it Bloomberg awesome, but Bloomberg best is accurate and less embarrassing to say.
Analysts are raising questions about rising competition and higher costs.
June Grazo and Ed Baxter.
It is the first company to go public in the space tourism industry.
Bloomberg best.
That was AutoNation CEO Cheryl Miller.
Weekday evenings at 5 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
More than just a game, baseball is big business. For the Atlanta Braves, this meant bringing a $1 billion stadium project to life through a public-private partnership, creating the Battery, a mixed-use development that turned an underdeveloped area into a thriving community.
Always on the cutting edge of community development, Cohn Resnick advises industry participants on tax credits, affordable housing, opportunity zones, and more, helping communities reach their full potential. Explore more at cohnresnick.com/MLB. Cohn Resnick, Advisory Assurance Tax. Transform your game.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Heidi Stroud-Watts.
Have we reached the beginning of the end when it comes to global rate cuts? And if that's the case, what comes next? Carissa McDonough is the Chief Fixed Income Strategist of People's United Advisors. Carissa, great to have you. I pose that question to you. Are we getting to the end of efficacy when it comes to rate strategy? And if so, what comes next? Is the fiscal side really ready and able to do the heavy lifting going into 2020?
I think everything that we heard in the prior report stands true. There are more monetary policymakers saying the fiscal side of the house really has to start picking up its load. The monetary policy has done really everything it can. The Fed was even, I think, surprised at the end of last year when it over-tightened. The bond market said, the market can't handle that level of tightening because there's no fiscal policy to pick up on the other side. The issue is monetary policy can't really cure growth problems. The growth concerns, the uncertainty, that really comes into play with fiscal policy. So what we're looking for is coordinated fiscal policy either in the U.S. or globally, but just remember this operates with an extremely long and variable lag time. So to see that coming through into actual economic data will still take some time.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 8:17 on Wall Street, and this update is brought to you by Inovalon, a leading provider of cloud-based platforms empowering data-driven health care for insurance companies, physicians, pharmacy, and pharmaceutical companies. Inovalon, data has a story to tell. Inovalon gives it a voice. Futures are higher this morning. We go to the first word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures are holding steady since the last time we spoke. Dow futures up 148 points. S&P's gained 12, while NASDAQ futures rise by 40. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.88%. Gold is down 5. And Shanghai was little changed overnight, while European markets are climbing, led by gains in Germany. Back in the U.S. on the economic front, 8:30 initial jobs claims. And after the bell last night, Qualcomm gave a strong forecast. Shares are up 6% in the pre-market. Baidu beat on revenue, and Roku lowered its forecast. Shares are down 15% in the pre-market. In deal news, Nielsen has spun off its global T-Mobile Connect business, and HP Inc. confirmed that Xerox made a takeover offer. Wrapping things up, Aircastle is raised to neutral over at Goldman Sachs, Expedia cut to neutral at Piper, and Mylan was cut to equate over at Morgan Stanley. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thank you. Thank you very much. Live from the Bloomberg Year Ahead Summit here in New York City. A very excitable Tom Keene. Looking forward to the events through the next couple of hours.
The next couple of hours is a big deal. And this interview with Ms. Sandberg of Facebook is not a walk in the park. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
There's a lot to discuss
here. Their strategy in Washington, their strategy around political advertising.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. What's the pre-market on Uber?
And reports, frankly, that they're not being fully transparent when it comes to their efforts to preserve people's privacy and counter some of the election interference allegations.
Happy to say that Bloomberg's Michael McKee has dropped by to catch up with us as well. Good morning to you, Mike.
Uber's under 27 pre-market.
Where are we now?
Sell finally?
Is that the 15% discount you get for taking a lot of Ubers? Or
yeah, for having a 4.88 rating, actually, as we learned yesterday.
What's Tom's Uber rating?
2.
He told us it's 2. Tom's got a 2 handle.
Oh, we know this, yeah.
Tom's rating has a 2 handle. That's official. I've seen it. Let's talk about the trade news overnight, Mike. Your thoughts? We've agreed to tariff rollback, but not agreed to a deal. Make sense of that for us.
We've agreed to a rollback of additional tariffs, is what the Chinese have said. And we don't know, because the administration hasn't commented on this, whether or not the Chinese are being accurate. But the fact that they are saying something like that is a little bit of good news, I suppose, because it does suggest, at least from the Chinese side, that they are working towards a deal. But as I've always said, until everything's settled, nothing is settled.
Well, but you said something yesterday that really stuck out to me, which is what you're looking for to actually put on your trade war done hat is China coming out with a statement saying, we will meet with the U.S. at this time, at this place to sign a trade deal.
Yeah.
What can we glean before that can actually be positive? Is just some communication from China that's not pessimistic enough?
Positive for whom? The markets want to trade on positive headlines. They haven't looked at the substance of the deal. And that's going to be the real issue, is what's in the deal once it gets signed. So, yeah, you'll have a positive short-term trading opportunity, but do you really think it's going to relieve the global headwinds of trade? From what we've heard now, no. What they're talking about is rolling back the $112 billion, the additional 5% tariffs on $112 billion worth of goods that were imposed by the White House September 1st. That's the rollback. Then the cancellation of the October and the cancellation of the December tariffs, which haven't been imposed yet. But it still leaves us with tariffs on $350 billion worth of Chinese goods. And so that impact is still there on U.S. consumers and on U.S. businesses.
The confidence needed to buy a futures contract in the market is different to the confidence needed to go and build a factory somewhere, Michael McKee.
Oh, totally.
And I just wonder to what degree this will lift animal spirits in the broader economy and business confidence as well.
Phase one won't do anything for business confidence. First of all, because it doesn't look like a big deal, and second of all, because we don't have any guarantee that in the future this is going to be carried out. Chinese haven't been very good at living up to their promises, and as we all know, Donald Trump changes his mind on a whim, and depending on what the political expediency for him is next year in the election campaign, things could change as well. So it's hard to know, if you're a CEO, what you're going to do. So
here's what I'm struggling with. Every time we get a trade headline, we then talk to people about how it's meaningless and how we don't know anything and how everything is qualified. And yet we're looking at still market reaction. And so I'm just trying to square that with reality. I mean, basically, is there any legitimacy behind market moves on some of these headlines and the idea that just the uncertainty will give a boost, period, full stop?
Well, you notice it's mostly in the equity markets. And
no, today you see actually a real lift in bond yields.
But it's, you also have other factors going into the bonds in terms of the overall U.S. economy. But no, it's a short-term trading opportunity. You get a headline, and a machine reads the headline and says, there's an arbitrage opportunity here because there's some good news coming. So for a short term, we go up. But then if we get some bad headlines, we go back down again. When they said yesterday that the signing might be put off to December, we saw equities drop a little bit.
Mike, I mentioned you in my interview with Charles Evans yesterday. I thought it was extraordinary, his force of a need to reflate. How alone is Charles Evans?
Oh, he's not alone. Everybody agrees.
He mentioned Kashkari in Minneapolis as well.
Kashkari's been very vocal about the idea of not raising rates. He opposed the idea of raising rates in the beginning because he said we have no inflation and therefore we should keep rates low until we get some. So there's no argument among members of the committee that inflation is too low and they would like to see inflation rise. It's a strategy question about how you get there and whether you think our star, to get too technical, is much lower. Yeah. And there's more people are coming into that view that our star is lower and that they can leave rates low.
And let me make clear, Mr. McKee briefed me before the Charles Evans interview, so I would be on the edge.
I have no doubt he did that.
Willem Bouder looked at me and said, Tom, these aren't your questions. These are McKee's questions.
Did you plant those questions in that room? All those people were your friends. John Lipsky, formerly of the IMF, right. Ellen Zentner of Morgan Stanley, Willem Bouder. Did you pay them to turn up?
He slipped them Bloomberg snacks.
Oh,
protein. He took all the protein out of the place and gave it to them.
But it was great. Thank you to the Council on Foreign Relations for a spirited discussion. John, futures up 13.
Futures are positive. The bond market dropping. Yields are higher. Looking at the Treasury market at the moment, we're up by 6 basis points on a 10-year to 188. On a 2-year note, 165. From New York at the Bloomberg Year Ahead Summit, you're listening to Bloomberg Surveillance Live on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Wall Street is headed for a higher open this morning after China said that it had conditionally agreed with the U.S. to roll back tariffs on each other's goods. S&P futures up 10, NASDAQ futures up 34, Dow futures up 127 points. Healthy U.S. sales of the RAV4 and the Corolla are helping Toyota, which posted quarterly profit that beat analyst estimates. The maker of the Prius hybrids and Tacoma trucks joins Tesla, Ford, and Volkswagen in reporting better than expected results, even as global car sales sputter. Digital media company Minute Media is in talks to buy the Players Tribune, a website started by former New York Yankees star Derek Jeter. Minute Media's websites include Mental Floss. Players Tribune aims to give athletes a platform to connect with fans that bypasses traditional media. Growth-starved digital media companies have been merging in hopes of sparking a turnaround. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and witness luscious scenery and calming waves. Fly from London Gatwick to St. Lucia with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £739 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
It's never nice missing out. But millions are doing just that by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB is here to help. They offer interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. So if you're one of the millions of people who are missing out, talk to TSB. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, we know that Nature Valley nut butter cups are delicious anywhere. But
So why just sit in the kitchen eating them? When you could be here, chilling outside in the fresh air with a tasty treat. Oh, good boy! Whole grain oats with a delicious real nut butter filling. Nature Valley Nut Butter Cups. Get out more.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content. Learn about hot new podcasts and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City for our audience worldwide, you're listening to Bloomberg Surveillance live on Bloomberg Radio with equity futures advancing on the S&P 500 by 12 points, a lift as the optimism around the trade story continues to build. We're up 0.4%. It's time now for your economic data. Your economic indicators are brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth number 1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit commonwealth.com to learn more. With your economic data, here is Vinny Dow Judice.
Okay, Jonathan, decent numbers on the labor market. Jobless claims falling to a 4-week low, 211,000. Not only a 4-week low, but very close to a half-century low. So jobless claims 211,000 last week. How tight is the labor market? The number of job openings nationwide tops the number of unemployed Americans by more than 1 million. Again, jobless claims 4-week low last week, 211,000. I'm Vinny Dow Judice, Bloomberg Radio. Let's go back to New York.
Vinny, thanks so much. And certainly for those that look for a solid economy, as does Vice Chairman Clarida, the jobless claims, that weekly data really brings to that. Neil Dutta with us, the Renaissance Macro. He has been absolutely outstanding on gauging the resiliency of the American consumer. Certainly that rolls over to the equity markets as well, and the economics of the nation. Neil Dutta with us. Neil, I want to go buried in your report to a trenchant chart which nobody's talking about, which is the savings of the American consumer. Describe how we're saving right now.
Well, thank you for having me on, Tom. The savings rate is quite elevated right now. It's about, it looks like 8.5%. It's generally been climbing over the last couple of years. And, I think all else equal, you look at the savings rate, it suggests a heightened level of caution among U.S. consumers writ large. But despite that, we've seen relatively healthy consumption growth. So, I think looking forward, given the recovery in the equity markets that we've seen, net worth rising relative to income, there's probably some room for the savings rate to drop in the quarters ahead. And if that were to happen, it would imply even stronger consumer spending.
Neil, there's a lot of confusion at the moment. I caught it with RBC's Tom Porcelli just yesterday, who I think is along the same kind of lines as you're thinking at the moment, the confusion around a return to trend growth with a journey towards recession. And Tom also pointed out another confusing part of the labour market for some people. Full employment is not the equivalent of a cyclical peak in labour market conditions. Can you speak to those themes as well, Neil? Just the confusion around distinguishing between one and the other.
Yeah, I think one way of thinking about it is looking at the level of activity in the labor market versus the rate of change, right? So the level of activity in the jobs market is quite strong. We have low unemployment, higher employment to population ratios, but the momentum in the labor market may have slowed a little bit, right? The pace of jobs growth, as an example. is a lot slower today than it was, 6, 12 months ago. So, that's why we're getting, we saw job openings as well. Job openings slowed. So, that implies maybe slower jobs growth in the future.
Yeah.
The question is whether that's enough to actually shift the level of activity. Is that enough to push the unemployment rate higher, in some kind of a sustained way? And I don't think that's the case. So we still have these overall tight labor market conditions, even if it feels like the numbers are coming in a little bit slower.
So, Neil, one thing people have pointed to is that households' debt-to-income levels have gone down, relative to history. You have savings high. Do these metrics work in the same way that they have in the past, given the fact that more people are renting, that healthcare costs are increasing, that the fixed costs that may not be included in some of these inputs are not stagnant and have been increasing faster than inflation?
Yeah, I think you can point to some, swaths of the, of the spectrum, that suggest that their balance sheet aren't as strong. But at the same time, keep in mind, we are. You mentioned rent. More people are renting. That's not entirely true, or at least it's not as true as it was a year ago. The home ownership rate is going up. Owner-occupied real estate is going up faster than renter-occupied real estate for the first time. Really since the early 2000s.
Okay, so you are seeing an increase there, but I'm wondering about the two-tier economy that Tom Keene was talking about earlier this week, the idea that there are entire groups of people who are seeing distress increase. At what point does that matter to the broader U.S. economy?
This is like sort of the classic thing that happens when growth starts to pick up. First it's student loan debt, then it's, then people move to corporate credit, and now it's, let's start talking about income inequality. I can't talk to things that have been happening, for the last 30 years on a trend basis. My job is to try to help tie the economic outlook in the United States to some kind of a market call. If you think income inequality is that much of an issue, then just roll your money into Walmart, Tom.
Well, I'm thinking about that actually. I'm looking at the
triple leverage Walmart fund.
I'm going all Nassim Taleb. I'm looking at the December way out of the monies. Retire early and all that. Neil, so importantly here is the call on the market as it links into a 1.9% GDP economy. Can you say that this giant bull market says 2.4% run rate GDP?
Look, I think that this is still the economic environment is consistent with decent corporate profits growth relative to what's priced into the market. So, it's not like this recovery in equities is coming with, sort of significant euphoria among the investor class.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the conference board data in terms of, retail sentiment around the equity markets. Most folks in that survey are still net bearish on equities. So despite the rally that we've seen. So, I wouldn't say that this is like a overbought sort of situation here.
Got to leave it there. Neil Dutta, thank you for a quick checkup. Mr. Dutta, who has been a true optimist on the market. It really, really has absolutely nailed the enthusiasm, John, in the market.
Much, much more constructive, with futures positive. 13 points on the S&P 500.
3,100 watch.
We advanced to 3088 on S&P 500
I'm not
futures.
going long till 3,200.
That is an interesting
call.
I
said that at 2,900.
Okay, this is Bloomberg.
And now the news in New York City. Here's Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Lisa. 2 former Twitter employees have been accused of being social media spies for Saudi Arabia. They were arrested this week. Saudi Arabia was at the center of the assassination of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Khashoggi was a very vocal critic of the Saudi royal family in many of his reports. President Trump spoke at a campaign rally in Louisiana last night and went on the attack against the whistleblower and the impeachment inquiry. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana also took to Trump's defense, calling out the Speaker of the House and how he said it is drawing attention.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi is trying to impeach him. Any disrespect, but it must suck to be that dumb.
Democrats say they will launch public impeachment hearings next week. First to testify will be William Taylor, the top diplomat in Ukraine, who has relayed in private his understanding that there was a blatant quid pro quo with Trump holding up military aid to the U.S. ally. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Tom, John?
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Greatly appreciate that. Time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here's John Stashauer.
Tom, it was New York versus Detroit. Knicks and Pistons, Rangers and Red Wings. The Knicks lost 122-102. They trailed by only 2 in the third quarter when Markieff Morris, who was playing against his twin brother, hit a three-pointer and was fouled. Flagrant foul on Julius Randle. So a free throw plus possession. The Pistons scored on that. Knicks coach David Fizdale on the sequence.
That's a tough one. It's tough to weather a 6-point play. That's actually the first time I've ever seen that since I've been coaching. So, but, you know, we may say a lot of mistakes defensively, but these are things that we can correct.
We'll see. Knicks and NBA worst 1-7. They've lost 8 straight to Detroit. They're in Dallas tomorrow facing their old friend Kristaps Porzingis. At the Garden, Rangers with 3 goals in the second period, 2 more in the third. 5-1 win over the Red Wings. This is a young Ranger team, but with a 37-year-old goalie, Henrik Lundqvist.
I think tonight we did a much better job of doing that. Trust our structure, and then we have the skill to use it when there's an opportunity and not force it. And tonight I think we just worked hard. We wait for their mistakes, and then we took advantage of it. So it's great to see we learned from last game where it kind of was the opposite going on for us.
Rangers play again tonight at Carolina. College basketball season opening win for St. John's. The new coach Mike Anderson by 30 over Mercer. Virginia opened defense of its national championship, a 48-34 win at Syracuse. The Orange shot only 24%. Rutgers looking for a new football coach, talking to a former coach, Greg Schiano, Jersey native, coached the Scarlet Knights for 11 seasons, won 11-2 one season. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashauer. Tom?
John, thanks so much. Let me drive forward from that sports update. Real simple here. Richard Truman at Bloomberg killing it with his fantasy football articles. See that every Thursday on Bloomberg as he gets ready for the football weekend. This is the American football weekend. He did better than good last week. There's no way he can do better this weekend. He'll probably get like 8 out of 9 wrong, I would suggest. We will have to see. Anyways, fantasy football, look for that from Bloomberg Sports. Futures up 12, Dow futures up 155. Stay with us worldwide. This is Bloomberg.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to see spectacular coral reefs and white sand beaches. Fly from London Gatwick to Mauritius with British Airways, with with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £949 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Spot a bargain in the Debenhams Spectacular event. Up to 30% off throughout the store and up to 15% off beauty and fragrance. Shop now in store and at debenhams.com.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month, £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre, but you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status. Damage charges may apply. No ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Ladies and gents, may I introduce a magical number? 25! Oh yes, 25 UK millionaires guaranteed in this Friday's Euro Millions.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Hello, Vitality Health Insurance.
Oh, hi. Is it true if I join Vitality I get de facto 5-star rated cover, can speak to a GP 24/7, get rewarded for staying active with things like Starbucks coffee, get a little sausage dog to live with me, and you can beat my current premium by up to 10%?
Absolutely. Except one of those.
It's the dog, isn't it?
Yeah.
Time to review your health insurance. Just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
Network of news and financial information 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the world should be concerned about an escalation in Iran's nuclear program. Pompeo says Tehran's recent activities raise concerns that it's poised for what he calls the option of a rapid nuclear breakout. Winter is coming, and although it already feels pretty cold in some places, meteorologist Chad Meyer says it's going to get a lot colder in the next few days.
Anywhere east of the Rockies is going to be below normal, especially after Tuesday. It's safe to say through Texas and even parts of Florida, the growing season will be over.
A 13-year-old suspect in a double homicide who broke free while he was in court back in custody in North Carolina. The teen's mother reportedly turned him over to U.S. Marshals in Lumberton. Former Attorney General Jeff Sessions expected to announce today he will run for his old Senate seat from Alabama. I'm Jan Johnson.
For the latest business analysis, talk to the best.
Tell me about the collaborations.
And listen to the best.
What are the ethical dilemmas?
Bloomberg Business Week, weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and filings for U.S. unemployment benefits declining more than expected to reach a 4-week low. Another sign the resilient labor market continues to underpin the economy. Jobless claims fell by 8,000 to 211,000 in the week ending November 2nd. U.S. stock index futures are higher along with European shares after China said it agreed with the U.S. to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. Treasuries and gold declining. The pound weakened after two Bank of England policymakers unexpectedly voted for an interest rate cut. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 12 points. Dow futures up 150. NASDAQ futures up 37. The DAX in Germany's up 0.7%. 10-year Treasury down 17.30 seconds. Yield 1.87%. And the yield on the 2-year 1.64%. NYMEX crude oil is up 1.5% or 86 cents at 57.21 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.5% or $7.90 at 14.85.20 an ounce. The euro
euro 1.1071 against the dollar. British pound 1.2807. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. It is 8:48 on Wall Street.
The following commentary is from Bloomberg Opinion.
Do the early states matter? I'm Jonathan Bernstein, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. Late surges ahead of the Iowa caucuses are pretty normal. But does it really matter who wins in Iowa and New Hampshire? There are basically three stories, and it's very hard to know which is true. The first is about momentum. Doing well in early states can generate media attention and therefore a surge in voter support. If that's the case, then any winner in Iowa could catch fire and win the nomination. The second story is about the absence of momentum. If that's the case, then Joe Biden could retain his support and his current polling lead, regardless of what happens in the first two states. Let's call the third story, it depends. If the structure of the race is already set before Iowa, the order of the primaries and caucuses won't matter much. But if the situation is fluid, then media or party-driven momentum after the early states matters. And we won't really know which story applies until after Iowa and New Hampshire. I'm Jonathan Bernstein. For more opinion, please go to Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPIN Go on the Bloomberg terminal.
This has been Bloomberg Opinion.
And Bloomberg Opinion editorials can be heard every weekday at this time, and terminal customers can read more at OPIN Go. Right now, S&P futures are up 10 points, Dow futures up 144, NASDAQ futures up 31.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
And joining us now, folks, here as we look ahead, year ahead 2020. And yeah, we'll get to Uber and all that. As a woman who writes with a stiletto knife dipped in ink when she writes every day, that would be Shira Ovide, of course, on technology. We want to get to Uber. We could get to WeWork with that Lex article
knife.
today.
I'm still struggling with that. Is it a stiletto heel?
We could pointy knife like a wicked pointy heel, like Sarah Jessica Parker's heels, and
you
dip them in ink and you write them there. And Shira Ovide with us right now. Ms. Sandberg will make an appearance today in our Year Ahead 2020. There will be smiles and giggles and then not. What's your number one question to the woman running for Zuckerberg?
Oh, boy. That's a really hard question. You know, I think there was an interview that Katie Couric did with Sheryl Sandberg not long ago, which I think was really exceptionally well done.
Why was it well done?
Well, she didn't let Sheryl Sandberg kind of stick to her talking points. Yeah, not cut her right off, but just sort of came back at her with repeated questions. But one of the things she asked Sandberg that I thought was a good question is basically are you sort of embarrassed to work at Facebook? It was sort of the question like, how has this impacted your public perception and your personal perception, which I think is an interesting question. It's certainly a company that's under fire.
Well, another personal perception issue is for Travis Kalanick and Uber and what's been going on in the shares there. I'm just wondering the road forward. Yesterday, another bloodbath after the terrible results. Moving forward, we are seeing a little bit more stability today. What do people need to see? What do you need to see to feel more confident about its prospects?
I think more of the same. You're right. I was surprised yesterday that there was this big lockup that lifted that basically hundreds of millions of shares were available to sell, and I thought it was just going to be an utter stock splat the whole day, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. But going forward, the issue is this company has set a target for itself of a pretty significant turnaround in kind of wildly adjusted profits, and I'm not sure how they get there in 2 years.
Yeah, talking about Travis Kalanick and reputational risk, I thought it was really interesting. In the Wall Street Journal this morning, Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund invested $400 million into a new company called Cloud Kitchens, founded by Travis Kalanick. And I'm wondering whether the failures at Uber that are being reflected in markets are not being reflected in sentiment of sort of startup investors, venture capitalists.
No, it's interesting. I mean, the rehabilitation of Travis Kalanick is an interesting story to see, that he got pushed out of Uber in this very public way. He kind of quietly left, as you said, started his own company, and by all accounts has had a very easy time raising money for it's basically like a ghost kitchen concept. It's sort of restaurant delivery without the restaurants. And it's an idea that many other investors are pursuing, and apparently his backers believe that he has enough magic to kind of build another company from scratch.
This is an important point, because I wonder if the narrative of investors demanding profits at this point more than the growth they once prioritized, if that narrative has gone too far and is not really accurately reflecting the mood at venture capitalist firms, at least not by their actions.
It's a good question. I don't know enough about what's happening at the very early stages of company building and investing in those young companies. Look, the fact is that if you're getting a company off the ground, it's probably not going to be profitable. And I think that's the model of venture capital from, day one of that industry. So the question for all of those companies, though, is there kind of an eventually sustainable business, not we'll build it and see how it goes.
Sure, you've been brilliant, not only linking all the soft, touchy-feely stuff, but into the financials as well. You mentioned earlier the hope and prayer of Uber out 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, which in today's age is somewhat foolish. But where's the vector, the mindset of all these non-profitable technology companies? Is it really a 5-year plan that they won't admit to?
I've just been surprised by the change in attitude just in, 6 months, basically since the spring, probably since Lyft and then Uber went public, that these companies now know or now believe that it's no longer enough to say our market opportunity is huge. All we need to do is capture, 2% of this giant market.
When are they going to capture profits?
Look,
I'm not GAAP net income. I don't mean grab.coddle. I mean the illusion of profits at the operating income EBITDA line.
So these companies are Uber and Lyft both have said that in 2 years, they're going to have adjusted EBITDA profits.
Community adjusted. Are you a believer in this? You are so cynical.
No, I literally this morning was looking at.
I grilled her like if I interviewed
Katie Couric. Look at that.
Yeah, it's like my educated Couric.
You have Katie Couric to me. I was actually looking this morning before I came on set at Uber's 9 pages of adjustments to their GAAP earnings. And, I'm not new to this, and I couldn't exactly figure out what was actually happening in some of their segments. And that worries me. I sort of feel like maybe they should just disclose cash in, cash out. Well, because that would be simpler.
Well, okay, there's the accounting issue. There's the opportunity and how big is it. There's also this idea of winner takes all. That in the .com era, there were the companies that survived and those that didn't. It wasn't tier 1 and then tier 2, which is valued a little bit below that top tier. So that's a question here. Is there going to be a winner take all where, say, Lyft, if they win, they will go on and survive and Uber will die?
I definitely think that in some of these categories, there can't be 1,000 winners. Now, whether that means 2 or 3 or 10, I'm not sure. My issue about the category that Uber and Lyft occupy, particularly in this kind of on-demand transportation, is I just wonder about, is the eventual both size and economics of that market as good as the optimists think? I sort of wonder that it's going to look not that dissimilar from the taxi business when all is said and done.
Sure, Obade, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate that. What Lisa alludes to there, folks, is the classic research of Michael Mabusian years ago at Credit Suisse on the winner takes all concept. Translated, everyone wants to be Amazon. Yeah. Futures up 14, 15. Earlier, they're up 11 right now. I'm going to still call it a legitimate oomph to the market. And it really correlates across 10-year yield, 5 basis points higher, 1.88%. I'm not on a 2% watch yet, but people are beginning to touch upon that a little bit. Lisa, 30-year bond, 2.36%. Where are spreads priced in here, Lisa?
Well, right now you are seeing a bit of a divergence where you see higher quality junk bonds continue to do really well and lower rated ones not doing so well, though I am looking at spreads marginally higher in the overall high yield space. People still trying to go to safety. As yields rise, though, they are rising in tandem with spreads, which is interesting.
Yeah, and also watching dollar yen. CIBC was with us earlier from Toronto, and they were really quite good on the yen proxy, if you will, 109.16 on Japanese yen. That was noteworthy. A weaker yen in the last week. So an interesting risk-on field of the market. We'll have much, much more a year ahead. 2020 meetings. This is Bloomberg Radio.
It's another Thursday afternoon. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hiya. It's been a crazy few months, so we're going back to Butlins for a little family break.
We're not so little anymore, are we, Stacey?
Tell me about it. Luckily, there's loads to keep us all busy, day and night. We love all the fab pools and water slides and the amazing live shows.
Don't forget the crazy golf, the go-karts and the wrestling.
Oh, I do love a bit of wrestling.
Calm down, Stace. It's a family show.
For a magical, festive break to Butlins this Christmas, book online now. There's so much included in the price.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The Federal Reserve's independence is crucial.
Central banks should be prepared and not presumptuous.
Finance.
In order to grow, you need to innovate.
Global money doesn't like uncertainty.
Investment.
I think the issue in the market is really more about the possibility of a recession in the next couple of years.
I do think we need to get back to where we have always been, the American dream.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, thank you for being with us on an interesting, somewhat earnings morning. We'll talk about earnings here in a moment. Some interesting stories out there as well. The lead story, without question, is trade migration. Beijing suggesting they're looking for a sequence of tariff rollbacks with an emphasis on the word series or sequence. We'll see where that goes. We had futures risk on up 15 with correlation with higher bond yields as well, and that sort of begins the day. The year ahead, is it 2020 or 2020? I say 2020.
Well, I was going to go 2020.
In the year 2020. Remember
right.
that song? That was a few years ago. But no, I didn't do it right, David.
The song was In the Year 2525.
Oh, thank you. Oh, not that I would have known that. I knew that.
It was a one-hit wonder for a group called Zager and Evans.
Now that I didn't know. David Wilson, I thought it was going to be Chicago or something. But that was, what was Chicago's 20 song?
25 or 6-4.
There we go. David Wilson, a fond of music and songwriting history. But Paul, it's interesting in that Miss Sandberg will be at Bloomberg today.
Yes.
And I'd like to be a fly on the wall at that discussion.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really not so much about the business of Facebook. It's really about where does Facebook fit in with society and data and privacy, and what is their response? Are they a media company? And if they are a media company, do they have...
That's the heart of the matter.
That's right.
You know, she is the best person on Wall Street to avoid that question. So you just keep...
Yeah, exactly right. If she's a media company, then...
Are they? I should point out, folks, that Mr. Sweeney is truly expert on the media with his building of Bloomberg Intelligence. Okay, great, Paul. But are they a media company? Is Twitter a media company?
Boy, you could certainly make an argument that they are, and if they are, then they have the same or similar responsibilities that the New York Times would have, or that Bloomberg News would have, in terms of data, in terms of veracity of what they report.
We can suggest that Qualcomm is a digital wireless communications equipment company. That's what David Wilson told me before we started the hour. David, you're going to begin with Qualcomm, then where do you go?
Well, let's start there, and we can move on. You know, Qualcomm's up 5% in early trading. The maker of mobile phone chips gave a fiscal first quarter revenue forecast that was just above analyst average estimate in Bloomberg survey. Qualcomm's fourth quarter sales and earnings also beat projections, really kind of signaling that perhaps we're seeing a rebound in wireless demand, specifically smartphones, after years.
Is that linked to iPhone?
That's a piece of it.
I mean, that's a piece of it.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. Freeport McMoran's up 2.5%. You know, we talked to Barrick Gold CEO Mark Bristow, and he said it would make sense for his company to combine with the copper and gold producer. Now, Bristow added that a deal for Freeport isn't currently being considered. Nonetheless, I mean, you have this potential going forward. And then there's Expedia Group, down 14% in early trading. The online travel service posted third quarter profit and revenue that trailed estimates. Yeah. Expedia was hurt by slower sales growth in its vacation rental business. Company cut this year's earnings forecast. Yeah. So you look across the industry, you see Booking Holdings down 3%, and you see TripAdvisor down 8%.
Are these companies affected by Google Flights? Is Expedia
Absolutely. And we had the Trivago CEO on a couple of days ago, and that company's facing issues there as well. So all these online travel companies, it's really boiled down to two companies, as Dave Wilson well knows, and they are trying to really compete against the Googles.
Do you go to Google Flights when you have a first look at wherever the Wilson family's jaunting to?
Can't say I do, but that's more because I go to United site instead. I mean, I tend to fly on United, being in New Jersey, going out of Newark. In fact, I'll be doing that this weekend.
Do you sit next to Mohammed El-Arian?
Can't say I do, but that's just because he's in first class. Anyway, some more earnings of note. You've got the animal health company Zoetis up 4.5%. You got the satellite broadcaster Dish Network up 8%. It's more than earnings at Dish. They're planning a $1 billion rights offering. They're going to raise money for, among other things, wireless investments, and it's being backstopped by Chairman Charlie Ergen, which means he's basically going to buy all the shares that others don't through exercising those rights. You've got the apparel maker and retailer Ralph Lauren up 11%, the drug distributor Cardinal Health up 4%, the dental product distributor Dentsply Sirona up 5%, energy producer Marathon Oil up 3.5%. Then you have Roku, down 14.5%. The maker of streaming video players added fewer customer accounts in the third quarter than analysts expected. Plus, Roku's fourth quarter profit forecast also trailed estimates. I got to mention PG&E before I go, down 5%.
Again? Yeah. Is there another 5% to give?
There is. I mean, because the stock's bounced back a bit lately, but they're taking a $2.5 billion pre-tax charge in the third quarter for wildfire-related claims. That's on top of what they've set aside earlier. And as a result, they have a loss for the quarter.
I miss this headline, folks. You can believe it, with all the team we have, and I have a great team trying to keep me in the news flow. I missed Uber block trade is said to price 2 million shares at $26.75. Yep. Was that Levitt getting out finally?
That might have been.
Might have been Levitt. Is that today or yesterday? Because there was a 2 million share block trade before another one
last night.
Wow.
Arthur back to back. Arthur was unloading 2 days in a row.
Okay.
Arthur Levitt, former David Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor. Thank you so much. Arthur Levitt, former SEC chairman. Arthur, we're just talking about Uber and what a real a case study it's been on what can go wrong for an IPO. And no investment bank on Wall Street is more closely aligned with the Uber situation than J.P. Morgan. And J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon recently said that Jamie Dimon, the banker to the world, has learned a few lessons. What do you take away from some of Mr. Dimon's comments about what J.P. Morgan may have learned from dealing with the Uber situation?
Well, I think a lot of it is in terms of governance. Jamie believes that good, sound governance is essential to any company, particularly companies going public. Now, J.P. Morgan had a lead role in advising the WeWork startup on its IPO. And when those plans were shelved in September, the bank offered WeWork a $5 billion debt package that the company passed up on in favor of a rescue from SoftBank. And Dimon was right when he said that he never believed that WeWork was worth the $47 billion that SoftBank assigned to it. Those expectations have to be realistic, and I think Dimon, probably as much as anyone in the business community, understands lessons learned about valuation.
Arthur, is this anyway, and folks, this goes back to the heritage of Chairman Levitt with the courage to support individual investors a million years ago, and trust me, nobody was doing it back then when Arthur carved new territory. Arthur, is this confidence building for the American public when they see, whether it's a Ramco with a 1% or 3% or whatever it's going to be percent sliver tossed out with what is being reported as near zero shareholder rights versus the Saudi royal family fine, or it's Uber where they unload their shares like this in such a clumsy, almost 18th century way. Are we doing this correctly?
No, we're not doing it correctly, and I think the public is becoming increasingly worried about the escalation of these kinds of exaggerated both hopes and projections. And the public is beginning to think we're nearing a top when this sort of thing happens.
Arthur, remember Rule 144 paperwork? Sure. It was like 47 pages, had to be filled out with forplicate. Levitt got a copy of everybody's Rule 144 statement. There was a pace and a cadence to it. Showed executive, as Arthur says, governance or leadership or guidance. Those days are gone.
Yes.
Yeah, Arthur, Tom brings up a great point. It seems like these lockup periods, they're just, in the old days, or not the old days, but recently, the insiders would say, hey, we're not selling. We're in this for the long haul. But it seems, those days as Tom suggested, seems to be kind of in the rearview mirror.
And that happens at times when the market gets very close to the top.
Arthur Levitt, thank you so much.
Wait a minute. We're going
to let him off
Thursday. Jets, Giants, worst football game ever?
Yeah. I think Jones is going to excel for the Giants and not give up the ball like he's done so often in recent games. I think it's a good day for Jones and the Giants.
The Nielsen rating in your Arthur's Mance is going to be 1. He's going to be the only one watching the game. Arthur Levitt, thank you so much. Greatly appreciated. He's the former chairman of the Securities Exchange Commission. I'm in Bloomberg, I should mention, board member as well. Paul, we don't have enough time to beat it to death here, but this isn't business as usual. A chemical company in St. Louis couldn't do this.
No, and it's just these companies that come out of Silicon Valley, they are privately, capitalized to the, tens of billions of dollars, and those people want their liquidity when the liquidity event happens.
Oh, the event is happening right now for Uber. I don't have a quote in front of me, but I think we're believing sub 27-ish right now. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, lots more to talk about here this morning with a risk-on feel to the market worldwide. This is Bloomberg.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. Funerals began today for 9 members of an American family on their way to a wedding when they were killed during an ambush in northern Mexico. Mexican officials say the shooting may have been a case of mistaken identity, but relatives of the victims say the family was targeted by the drug cartels. A new poll shows Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg are in a dead heat in Iowa among Democratic presidential contenders. The Quinnipiac University poll finds Warren has 20% of likely caucus goers. Buttigieg has about 19%. Bernie Sanders follows with 17%, and Joe Biden is in 4th place with 15%. President Trump traveled to Monroe, Louisiana to support Republican businessman Eddie Rispone in the governor's race against incumbent Democrat John Bel Edwards. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Paul, Tom?
Michael Barr, thanks so much. You know what I'm watching, folks? Risk on feel here. How about dollar yen? 109.17. Weaker yen this morning. Correlating that risk away feel. This is Bloomberg.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills. The kind of skills that companies need to build real products. And the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich? No. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Asset Man. It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
She did it! Her first word! Listen, everyone. Mama. Oh, she's lovely. Mama. Oh, did you hear that?
Oh.
Savings. Savings account.
Teaching your kids how to save may not be this easy, but you can get them learning good habits and skills from an early age, thanks to the range of children's savings accounts from Yorkshire Building Society. Just another example of real help with real life. Find out more at ybs.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hi, Susan. What's a Brew City Brew Bite?
It's Beer Munch.
Oh, all right, but what exactly is it?
It's Beer Munch.
Okay. But what about a Brew City Halloumi Fry?
It's Beer Munch.
And an onion straw?
It's Beer Munch.
Yeah, it's Beer Munch. Yeah, so you keep saying. Hot, shareable snacks. They're delicious with a cold beer and friends. You'll find them in the freezer aisle. Brew City.
It's Beer Munch.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Sherry Ann.
U.S. stocks climbed to all-time highs on Monday, following reports the U.S. and China are closing in on a partial trade deal. Joining us now is Kramer Capital Research CIO Hillary Kramer. Hillary, great to have you back. So, of course, it doesn't hurt that about 80% of S&P 500 companies that have reported have beat EPS estimates. So I have to wonder how much of this rally has to do with the good news on trade and how much because of earnings.
Generally, it's this optimism around the trade deal solving all problems, being the be-all and end-all. You know, earnings were good; they were decently strong. But once it took off after the first week, and we heard some good news from J.P. Morgan, the banks, and then the industrials reported. It was already baked in once we got all of that, and then it's all just been like, okay, great, we're going to have a signed phase 1 deal by month end. Let's just bring these, let's take the indices to the next highest level.
Valuations keep moving higher. So what will it take to sustain this rally?
Well, the Fed would have to keep cutting, and the Fed isn't going to keep cutting. I mean, there is dovishness, but we're not going to have a cut in December. And so the reason we have this technology rally, it all just has to do with pure valuation.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow in the Bloomberg Futures Report, brought to you by IBKR and CME Group. The new micro E-mini futures contracts are available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at IBKR.com/CME Mini. U.S. stock index futures are rising with European shares after China said it agreed with the U.S. to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. The pound is weakening after two Bank of England policymakers unexpectedly voted for an interest rate cut. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are up 12 points. Dow futures up 158. NASDAQ futures up 36. The DAX in Germany up 0.7%. 10-year Treasury down 18/30 seconds, yield 1.88%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.64%. NYMEX crude oil up 1.8% or 99 cents at 57.36 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.5% or $7.10 at 14.85.90 an ounce. The euro 1.1065 against the dollar. British pound 1.2815, and the yen at 109.19. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney, thrilled that you're with us. Bloomberg Radio Worldwide. Bloomberg every year trots out a year-ahead view, and it always has interesting conversation from people. It's all, very TED and very thoughtful. Except, Paul Sweeney, this year there's a certain tension to the morning keynote.
There is. Sheryl Sandberg, the chief operating officer from Facebook, sat down earlier this morning with Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde. Let's listen in.
Your work on Capitol Hill, the ongoing dialogue that is happening between not only you and political ads, but those that are buying the political ads, the politicians themselves. The scrutiny upon you in terms of antitrust, in terms of competition, how do you feel you've thus far been able to relate your story, been able to be fully transparent and offer up answers as quickly as politicians would like them?
We're definitely working on offering up those answers. And I think you're right that the anti-competitive narrative and the competitive narrative is one people are really focused on. And that's because there's real concern about the size and power of tech companies, of us, of Google, of the others, of Apple, of Amazon. There's real concern there. Antitrust legal policy has been really important in the history of America to protect consumers from price gouging, from no choice. I just think it's hard, if you look at our industry, to argue or prove that there's anything but a very, very robust choice.
That was Sheryl Sandberg, Facebook Chief Operating Officer, sitting with Caroline Hyde at the Bloomberg Year Ahead Conference here in New York. They're still chatting
talking,
live.
Paul, save me.
Exactly. Let's bring in our good friend Max Chapkin from Bloomberg News to get a sense of this Facebook story. It's not necessarily about the profits and losses of Facebook right now. The issue really seems to be, and the discussion seems to be around the role of Facebook within our society, particularly as it relates to the elections, for example. Are they a media company? Should they be held to the same standards? So, Max, it's an issue that Facebook and their executives, and we heard from Sheryl Sandberg just now, are really grappling with. How do you think that plays out?
So, just backing up, Facebook financially doing great. It's kind of amazing how we have sort of one negative headline after the other for the last couple of years, and the company has performed exceedingly well. That said, they've really been on the defensive on these questions of their power, and I think you saw that in the answer that Sheryl Sandberg just gave, where it's a little bit fuzzy, and we're asking, what are you going to do about this antitrust conversation? And she's saying, never mind. I think their strategy is kind of twofold. Number one, our service is free, therefore we're helping people. Number two, we don't have a monopoly because there are these Chinese companies, and we saw this in Mark Zuckerberg's testimony the other day. Yeah. There are these big Chinese companies. They are really scary, and they are our competitors. You don't want to regulate us because you're just going to create an opportunity for this company, TikTok, which is owned by ByteDance, which is based in Beijing, which is censoring, some content. So that's the strategy. It's sort of partly, we're really great, partly, watch out for China.
That's all we get from Ms. Sandberg. We just heard it there with Caroline Hyde. So, Max, you're out of Yale. I believe somewhere in the vicinity of year 2 at Yale, they beat into you critical thinking skills. What kind of chief operating officer manager to Ms. Sandberg and Mr. Zuckerberg need to salvage this linkage of fabulous financials with a cacophony of issues they've, some would say, created?
So I don't know that you can reconcile that. I think that Facebook's financials have accrued from its power, and what its critics are going to say is that the reason Facebook is performing as well as it's done is it basically has a monopoly on certain kinds of display advertising. That is the sort of non-search ads that you see on your phone.
But the monopoly is no one I know uses Facebook anymore. They've all left in droves. Granted, the financials
They've gone to
are great.
Instagram and
They're on
WhatsApp
Instagram.
and a bunch of, which is of course owned by Facebook, and they've been working very hard over there in California to sort of
expect this interview to be like this.
No.
This touchy-feely.
He came to the sixth floor for
sensitive, crystals and donuts and candles interview.
So, Max, I think one of the issues that they're probably going to have to address pretty soon, like right now, is kind of this upcoming election. What kind of role are they going to play? How are they? Because
in terms of political ads,
it was really a problem in 2016. What do you think they're going to do here this year?
Well, they came out and said there's a big controversy over political ads that contain, say, misinformation or misleading statements. Mark Zuckerberg gave a big speech 2 weeks ago saying, we believe in free speech. We are not going to fact-check political ads. Everyone sort of seemed to kind of go along with that, maybe except for Elizabeth Warren. But we've seen a bit of a drumbeat of criticism, first from Jack Dorsey, who kind of came out with a bit of a troll, I'd say, saying, we are rejecting all political ads.
Is that constitutionally legal? I mean, how did you, as a technology guru at Bloomberg Business Week, can media companies say we won't accept political ads?
So the regulatory regime there's a regulatory regime for television stations and stuff. That does not apply to Facebook. Now, Facebook is sort of saying, well, because television, radio, they're not fact-checking ads, we shouldn't have to either. But those rules don't exist yet.
Paul, Max hasn't watched TV in 8 years.
No, he streams.
We got just a little bit of time of how is this going to play out? Who's right? Political ads with these companies or not political ads with these companies?
I think the point that people who are uncomfortable with political ads on social media will make is that they're fundamentally different from television ads, because television ads are sort of a mass medium, and social media ads are targeted specific to people.
Right.
So if you put out a misleading television ad, then it's very easy for the media to fact check it. If you put out a social media ad and only show it to a very specific group of people,
unfortunately, we have to continue this. Max Chafkin is with us with Bloomberg Business Week. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stock futures point to a higher open with the opening bell straight ahead this morning. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce said China and the U.S. had agreed to roll back some tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. Dow futures up 152 points, and we're seeing crude elevated as well. It's now up 2% at $57.49 a barrel. The unemployment lines are getting shorter. Filings for jobless claims fell by 8,000 to 211,000 last week. The overall number was a 4-week low and was better than expected, indicating the labor market remains robust, even though some parts of the economy, such as manufacturing, are weak. Fitbit reports revenue that beat analyst estimates in its first quarterly results since Google announced its planned acquisition of the wearable technology company. Shares of Fitbit are little changed to lower before the opening bell. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Ladies and gents, may I introduce a magical number? 25! Oh yes, 25 UK millionaires guaranteed in this Friday's Euro Millions.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
Oh no. 1 kebab, 4 cabs, 3 karaoke booths.
But really?
You can't always recall what you spent on a night out. But you could map the location of those transactions on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. Not available for every transaction. T's and C's apply.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Pulled into the end zone, and he's yanked in by a lineman for the touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium. Today, hear the home and away call as the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers visit the 4-4 Oakland Raiders at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
15-10, 5, touchdown, Denver!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 1061 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Good morning. I'm Karen Moscow along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. The opening bell is brought to you by SEI. Asset managers can exceed new thresholds for data management, reporting, and responsiveness. Transform your business with SEI's global operating platform at SEIC.com/IMS. And the S&P 500 higher at the open, up 0.4% or 12 points at 3089. Dow Jones Industrial average up 0.5% or 135 points to 27,626. And the Nasdaq's up 0.5% or 45 points to 84.56. 10-year Treasury down 19/32, yield 1.88%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.64%. NYMEX crude oil up 1.7%, up 99 cents at 57.31 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.33% or $5.10 at 14.88 an ounce. The euro 1.1064 against the dollar. The yen is at 109.17. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Interesting day out there. We'll get the Uber prints with these block trades going on as well. One of the great realities of your 10th grade, or maybe in the modern school, 8th grade, is the joy of learning how hard it is to write poetry. You write, then somebody says, write it short, and well, that's hard. Greg Villiers does this each and every morning on Politics with AGF Toronto. Greg Villiers joins us with his brilliant morning note. And Greg, you were reading my mind. You go right to what matters. They tell us they aren't interested in voting. Is that the great quiet out there that we may screw up this process so bad that we get record low turnout?
Well, it could be, Tom. Good morning. I did mention this morning that some young people I talked to feel it doesn't make any difference. The piece I wrote this morning talked about how it makes an enormous difference, if for no other reason than what has happened to the judiciary, which has moved radically to the right.
Is the Attorney General moved radically away from the President just in the last 24 hours impeachment gossip?
You know, I think that story is maybe a bit overdone. I think Barr is a reliable ally for Trump. I think Barr felt it was just crossing a line for him to have a press conference absolving Trump of all sins. But there might be a little friction there.
Yeah.
So, Greg, the headline of your piece this morning is just extraordinary. It's entitled "The Least Appreciated Story in Washington." What is that story, Greg?
Well, again, it's the judiciary. They had a celebration yesterday. Mitch McConnell almost single-handedly has gotten over 150 judicial appointments, lifetime appointments of young judges, many under the age of 50, for appeals courts, district courts, and, of course, the Supreme Court. This is a story that will have an impact for decades to come.
And it's interesting because that also includes 2 Supreme Court judges, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I believe, is 86. So how is Mitch McConnell and the White House kind of positioning themselves for what may be an opening within this administration's time frame?
Well, they have a list, obviously, of possible candidates, and I think McConnell would succeed if Ruth Bader Ginsburg should leave the court. So, again, I'm amused sometimes when conservative activists say they're not crazy about McConnell. They should erect a statue to Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell has single-handedly made a difference for redistricting, reproductive rights, you name it. All these issues that the court will decide have now been transformed.
Greg Valliere, we are 2 days on from an off-year election. All of the punditry is an analysis of the suburban voter. This is one of your great expertises. Color for us the shades of a suburban voter and how they dash from the President of the United States.
It's a big deal, Tom. I think especially in a state like Virginia that's now controlled entirely by Democrats, Trump and the Republicans lost the suburbs, and they're losing moderate voters in the middle. That's something that has huge implications for what I call the big three: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. If those 3 states, which Trump narrowly won, flip back, I think he loses.
So carry that forward. Let's use Pennsylvania, because Cirilli would want me to use Pennsylvania, which is election after election, moderate Democrats maybe at the margin gain a tip point. Are the moderate Democrats at any kind of tip point against more liberal big city Democrats?
I think so. I think that they are where the election will be won or lost. That's where you're going to see the most ads. That's where you'll see all of the candidates.
So, Greg, Pete Buttigieg, where do you rate him right now? Is he legit in that top discussion going forward, or do you think he may be a little bit of a flash in the pan or flavor of the month?
No, I think that this is, to make a crude analogy, it's like running in a marathon or seeing a horse race where at the very end someone breaks out, as Barack Obama did, of course, in Iowa. And I think there's a good chance that as we get into December, Buttigieg will continue to rise in the polls, and I think we'll finish in the top 3. I think he could even finish in the top 2 in Iowa.
How does he break out, Greg Valliere? Is it he breaks out or the others fall behind or stumble? That's an interesting
I think the more people see him, they realize he makes sense. He's articulate, seems to be a solid guy. There's one big flaw, though. Please. It's not his age. It's not his sexuality. It's his inability to connect with African American voters. That's a problem for him.
So it's interesting. I think a lot of folks here on Wall Street are just absolutely, scared to death of Elizabeth Warren. Is Pete Buttigieg, is he somebody who can, get to the centrist Democratic voter that is going to be absolutely required?
No question. I think the markets can live with either Biden or Buttigieg. The thing about Warren, in my opinion, is that I think she's leveled off. She had all the momentum going into the fall. I think she's leveled off for one major reason. She can't explain how she'll pay for all of her programs. She doesn't have a credible explanation. I think that starts to hurt her.
Can you explain that in your newsletter tomorrow, Greg? Your research report? Can you get Medicare for all into 6 paragraphs?
I'll try.
Okay, Greg Valliere, thank you so much as always with AGF, and I really can't say enough. I should mention, folks, you protect the copyright of all of our guests. You can look for Greg Valliere's really brilliant work from AGF Toronto. Well, I guess it's a moonshot, Paul. Off the opening trade bottom. You can what happens, Paul, on a desk when a 2 million share block has to be worked out? And you've worked some of it, but just some of it, and not all of it.
Yeah,
there's a guy over your shoulder, right?
That there is, and it depends on who the seller is, and if he or she is a good client, you might have to own a little bit of that stock going into the open and try to trade out of it at a profit here. But so it all depends on who the seller is. But yeah, these desks are crossing a lot of stock over the last 24 hours. As that lockup expired for Uber, 1.6 billion shares eligible for sale. So that's flooding the markets.
B is in billion?
B is in billion. Yeah.
So a 2 million share block is 2 divided by 1,600.
Yeah.
Did I do that right?
There's a lot of there's a lot of stock, but presumably a lot of the it's just a question: what are some of those big insiders doing? And given what the stock has done, how it's performed so negatively, maybe they're waiting for a better day.
Low 26.45. That was my 100 share order. Come out of cash. 26 right now. 27.01. On Uber. We just use that as an example, folks, of some of the other follies. Would you say, Paul, the follies that are going on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's this
Look at the Dow, 177. we're 7 points from 3,100 SPX.
We were on 3,100 watch on a Monday.
28,000 watch.
Yeah, I know. It's just
should we go into Dow 30,000 watch?
We're grinding up every day. It's what a dovish Fed will do, and a little bit of positive rhetoric coming out of the trade negotiations.
And am I right? A little bit of earnings. A
little bit of earnings, absolutely.
Versus the gloom that's out there. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, year ahead 2020 at Bloomberg, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. The long-established Mormon community with dual citizenship living on the Mexico border is planning funerals for the 3 mothers and 6 children who were on their way to a wedding earlier this week. They were killed in an ambush-style shooting as they traveled along a road known as a major trafficking pipeline for the cartels. The first funerals are today. Brian LeBaron, a relative of the victim, says Mexico's president should accept President Trump's offer to help wage war on Mexican drug cartels.
The president of Mexico should put his pride aside and accept the international help.
At least 1,000 visitors are expected for the funerals. Rudy Giuliani says his work with Ukraine was done solely as a defense attorney for President Trump. It seems to undercut the administration's claim that he was advancing U.S. foreign policy. Jeff Sessions is said to announce today that he plans to run for the Alabama Senate seat. He vacated it in 2017 to become Attorney General. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Paul, Tom?
Michael, thanks so much. Up 184 points, 27,676 on the Dow. SPX near 3,100, 3,094 on SPX. Major Bloomberg surveillance shout-out to everyone at the Council on Foreign Relations. Thank you to Ambassador Haas for his hospitality and his great team. And a thank you to the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago for their support of President Evans. This is Bloomberg.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day.